Hi, this is Mrs. M with the Janitorial Spot. Today I'm going to go over in a little bit more detail on bidding. That is one of the questions we get all the time with how to bid. So we're going to talk about what should be actually included in a bid when you're doing a bid for a commercial account. The labor costs should definitely be included. The supplies, your equipment, your insurance, your personal taxes, or your payroll taxes, your unemployment, sales tax, uniforms, overhead, profit margin should all be included in your bid. This is Mrs. M with the Janitorial Spot, and I'm going to go a little bit into detail with each one. So the very first thing you want to figure out is your labor cost. Figure out how much you plan on paying your employees. Now, of course, you have to ask the question, what is the minimum payment that you have to pay? So find out what your state's minimum payment is, and if you're doing business in more than one area, find out what the requirements for the minimum payment, and then decide what is going to actually get you the best employees for the cost of money you need to pay. Some places, if it's $750, you need to pay $950 to actually get the best workers. Make sure that you do a percentage of each bid with your labor cost. I recommend that your labor costs not be more than, if at all possible, 50% of the total bid. So if the bid's $1,000, you don't want your labor cost to be over $500. That's a good measure to know what you have left to work with. Then you have your supplies. Calculate what you assume after you've done your walkthrough. This is when you're coming up with your bid because you've already done your walkthrough. What you think the supplies are going to be. Weekly, I prefer monthly, what your monthly supplies are going to be for that account. Add that into your labor costs. Then your equipment. You should have what your equipment is. Now, I would suggest you have equipment already on hand that you've actually used from when you started your business, and you put money aside for your equipment. So that means your brooms, dustpans. You should have a list of what you normally need to start any regular account. That means no floor equipment, but of course a vacuum cleaner, your mop, your bucket, your brooms, your dustpans, your lobby broom, all of that should be in your equipment list. And you should have a list, and you should have an initial equipment package set aside for new accounts. That way you already have factored in the cost of what the equipment is going to be. Next is going to be your insurance. You want to have general liability, and you want to know what your law is for workman's comp. Some state it's 4 and under. You do not need to have workman's comp, but make sure you check that out. This insurance is very important along with all the other, the labor, the supplies, the equipment, and the insurance. At a minimum, you should have $1 million for general liability. And then, like I said, you want to check on the other type of insurance, bonding insurance. There are so many different types of insurance. I'm going to actually do a video on insurance all by itself because that's a big one that we get a lot of questions when people are interested in how to start a janitorial company. And that's what we specialize in, getting you started in your new janitorial company for janitorial startups. Next, we have payroll. This is a big one. Your payroll costs are going to be what you have to send the IRS for your employees. That's your Social Security taxes. That is also your 940, your 941s. Those are your annual taxes that you take out for your employees, and also your quarterly. And you want to make sure that you really monitor this. A lot of people don't add in the payroll taxes. So if they're paying $9 an hour, they're actually paying $15 when you add in all your taxes. You do not want to get behind on this and start using the payroll taxes for supplemental income for your business. It will get you in trouble. You will be way behind on your taxes because you will have collected the taxes from your employees, but if you're not paying your IRS, this is going to come back to hunt you. Unemployment tax. A lot of people are not familiar with this, but as an employer, you are responsible for the unemployment tax for your employees. So make sure that you contact your state and already set up an unemployment account for paying your unemployment taxes. This should occur when you register within 90 days any new employees that you have. I will also make sure that the Janitorial Spot does some videos on how to register new employees when you first get your first employee, what steps you should take. Sales tax. If you are not doing residential, sales tax is a part of commercial. Very important. Make sure that you have your sales tax available for doing the business. Include that in your bid, and then make sure you set that aside. That is normally collected either monthly or quarterly, depending on how much the sales tax is. Some places is monthly, some places is quarterly, but you do have to register with the state, just like you do with the unemployment, to make sure you pay your adequate sales tax. This one will get you in trouble as well, because it's actually where you set the money aside and you have to send it in, and some people do not send in their sales tax, and they owe millions of dollars to the state. I know it sounds like it doesn't take a long time to get that, or it would take a long time. You'd be surprised how fast this, as well as payroll taxes, add up so quickly. Uniforms. You definitely want to look professional and have your uniform. So there should be money set aside for each bid for a uniform. It could be 2% overhead. That's your cell phone, your business lines, your gas, anything that's required, your office, your paper to actually print out the bids. All of that is considered overhead. That's not considered, well, some people consider overhead their labor, but I like to separate it out so that way you have your labor costs and all the rest of them. So you've got your overhead of the overhead expenses are what it actually costs to run your company. And then the last one is your profit margin. You want to have a profit margin set because this is what you're actually going to keep out of the bid. So in other words, don't get into the habit of working the account, getting the money, and spending it. Only using labor cost and the insurance. That will have you always working the business yourself and never being a business owner. And if you want to move to being a business owner when you start your company, which should be one of your goals, then this is something you really want to make sure you pay attention to. Now, your labor costs we talked would be hopefully no more than 50%. Your supplies could be 3%. Your equipment could be 5%. Your insurance could be 2%. Your payroll could be 3%. Your unemployment could be 1%. This depends on how many people actually file unemployment against you. It goes down as you're in business longer. So this is something you want to make sure that's why we talk about doing your policies and procedures, which makes it hard for someone to get unemployment. Your sales tax is not really a percentage because that's something that they're paying you tax. So that's just going directly into the IRS, or I'm sorry, the state. Your state is for the sales tax. Usually that might be 6%. Your uniforms could be 2%. Your overhead could be 10%, and your profit could be anywhere from 5 to 20%. The ideal situation is if you can get 20% from your profit. Now, this right here depends a lot upon what the goal is. If your goal is to get your foot in that door, you might do 3%. You might break even, but always try to reach to get a percentage for your profit margin. This is one of the biggest differences when it comes to how people actually scale their janitorial company and actually grow from the start to where they end up, where they're worth $1 million, a couple of $1 million, and they're able to sell the business if that's their goal, leave it to their children, but it actually can change your life. So each one of these should have a percentage by it, and you want to make sure you write this down in advance so that you know what your percentages are going to be. That way you know that your labor cost starts out at no more than 50%. That gives you a starting point for all the other categories that you want to make sure that your bid covers. Every bid should cover each one of these categories. So I really hope this video was informative and helpful. Please make sure to visit us at www.thejanitorialspot.com or give us a call at 1-800-601-2730, extension 106. Also, you can sign up for our newsletters, and we send you a free weekly business resource on how to start your janitorial company and then ways to grow it from the startup. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.